room host here in Denmark. And Jan is here with me, who's the Zoom chair. And Libby from the US is the Zoom tech. You must have had a very early start this morning, Libby. I don't know what time it is for you now in the US.
It's 10 to 6. So I'm going to get my cup of coffee here in a moment.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for getting up so early to be with us. So this morning we're going to have a presentation from Peter regarding integrated living communities. And this is something Peter's been working on over the last few years. And they've just recently set up a board. And also Anna Marie from the board is going to also talk as well later this morning. So Peter has a lot of experience involved in developing innovative communities. He spent 25 years in Australia. He's a master's in engineering, and he's really passionate about integrated living communities. So I'll pass over to Peter now, and he can tell us a bit more about integrated living communities.
Thank you. Is this sound okay? Or just be quiet? Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for taking time to listen to what we have to say here. The integrated community is a for-purpose attempt. An attempt means that it's not realized, but it's an attempt to change the paradigm of how we live.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the microphone is not picking up very well at all.
I don't think this is on.
We can't understand you.
Is it on?
I hope so.
Can you hear me? Is that better? This? Can you hear me now?
We can hear that you're talking, but the quality is bad. It doesn't sound like the microphone
It's not on.
is on.
Is that good enough? No? Yeah. Hello? 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 No? 1, 2, 3. Maybe I can use that microphone instead. Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Okay.
Great. Thank
That one
you.
wasn't working. Yes, yes. Okay. Oh no, I'll keep the, you will have to use this as well. So first of all, thank you very much for taking time to participate. I want to share with you the passion for a real paradigm shift, and I would also like to inform you that this is not a Peter Olsen Enterprises. This is a collaboration between a lot of people from many continents over many years. And the exercise that you're experiencing here is really the version that is taking shape in Denmark. The circumstances are that a bit random, I would say, but I would like to start off by showing you the background to the story with a short video that gives you some perspective. And it's all about inclusion. Could I ask you to run the video? It's a 9-minute video.
Yeah. This one.
I guess I can, while we get the video underway, I can say to you that the premise is simple and yet, for some reason, not particularly well grounded in humanity. And it's about every person on this planet has something to contribute with. Everybody can contribute under the right circumstances. We have managed to create a framework for ourselves that allows certain people to flourish and other people to find it really difficult to participate. In this context, the group that is the first, I guess, off the rank in this context is people with disabilities, because I have, as you will see from the video, some personal life experience in that context, and I guess I have sent some qualifications in understanding how that integration and inclusion is possible. And Anne-Marie is going to explain to us the difference between integration and inclusion, because that is a fundamental thing to understand. We're nearly there. We need to start from the front. Can we start? I need to go back to the beginning. Pull it back to the beginning. Then make it full screen.
Oh, it's not shared.
Wish for nothing more than healthy kids and fear that moves somewhere in the background.
Something happens, and ours was one that was discovered at age 3. It's an absolute disaster.
I'm Philip Højgaard-Olsen. I'm 19 years old. I have shown.
Any parent's instinct is, of course, that you wish for nothing more than healthy kids, and the fear is always somewhere in the background if something happens. And ours was one that was discovered at age 3. It's an absolute disaster.
I'm Philip Højgaard-Olsen. I'm 19 years old. I have shown muscular dystrophy, and this is my story.
Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a genetic condition affecting young boys. People with this condition will show signs of weakness by age 2 to 3 and lose their ability to walk by their teenage years.
I saw Philip develop from 18 months all the way through to today. So walking and then slowly deteriorating to permanently going into a wheelchair.
By teenage years, Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients can start having muscle weakness, affecting their respiratory muscles.
Well, now, lots of disabilities don't necessarily change during lifetime. Duchenne is having an ongoing deterioration. Anything you used to be able to do, you can't do anymore. You're constantly retraining yourself to work around stuff, and it's getting harder and harder to be here.
I was able to go out and do most things in the, I guess, like the first 10 years of my life.
As he reached each level, he just became more and more frustrated that he had to give up that little bit of independence that he had.
In the past, patients have not been able to reach adulthood, but now they live into their 20s and 30s. Sadly, there is still no cure for DMD.
My first reaction is one of, well, there's got to be something that can be done. So the first reaction in different formats is about finding out, well, is there a cure, is there a treatment?
But as Philip's getting older, I think people are becoming realistic that maybe not in his lifetime.
We're very blessed for having Philip at age 19. I don't think I saw it that way when he was diagnosed.
Having a disability, you have lots of challenges thrown at you throughout life, and I've been able to conquer a lot of those.
Philip is an exceptional achiever.
I have volunteered for Muscular Dystrophy New South Wales, assisting with fundraising, Cerebral Palsy Alliance, as an advisor to the board.
He lobbied car-sharing startup GoGet to launch cost-effective transport for people in wheelchairs. He won the Italian Connection Trophy Car Rally as a navigator, along with the President's Cup and Manly Yacht Club's Sailor of the Year. He was a star performer at the School Spectacular 2 years in a row, and was also invited by the Governor of New South Wales to a reception in the presence of their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall.
The biggest thing that we have got from Philip as an individual living with Duchenne muscular dystrophy is living now, being in the present at all times.
Philip always had a much bigger dream: to be able to live independently.
Independence for me means that I'll be able to go out and do things myself. Eventually I'll be able to move out of home and start my own independent life where I'm responsible solely for getting support I need.
In Australia, well, everybody, if you don't want to end up in a people home or a nursing home, you are going to have to stay with mom and dad for the rest of your life. Good luck with that.
With the lack of 24/7 care in Australia for people like Philip and a determination not to end up in a nursing home as a young person, Philip began his journey to reach his personal freedom. Through the Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award, he discovered a one-of-a-kind fully integrated boarding school that encourages independent living, especially for the disabled. Exactly what Philip wanted. And ironically, it's located in his heritage country of Denmark. In June 2017, with the help of the newly introduced Australian National Disability Insurance Scheme, Philip and his Australian carer flew the 16,000 kilometres to Copenhagen and then travelled a further 300 kilometres west to the small village of Hau, and arriving at his destination, the extraordinary Egmont Hospital, a 40-hour journey from Australia.
So we're standing in front of the Egmont Folk High School, and it was founded by our headmaster's father, and he was a handicapped man. He started a folk high school for people with physical disabilities.
Lots of people with severe disabilities are going to smaller or bigger institutions. And in an institution, you are a part of a system, and the system decides for you how to live. And my ambition is that all people with disabilities have the right to make decisions of their own life. And therefore we have to make structures so that it's possible. Of course, you need skills to do that. And that's what we are trying to give the students here.
We were in Norway for a week. It was like survival in the wilderness. There were some totally disabled students and really almost didn't want to go because I guess they thought it was just too much. But then they ended up going anyway. One of the best weeks of my life because the special feeling of being able to give someone an experience that they wouldn't get anywhere else, and letting them see that they are able to do the same things as a full-functioned body can do, but just in a different way. They get the help. It was really touching and, yeah, amazing to experience.
If you can do anything by yourself, you're doing it by yourself here. If you can live an independent life, as independent as possible, that's what we aim for.
And that was all Philip needed to hear to start living his dream.
Philip got a real insight into this is the way I want to live, totally independent from my parents. He has been doing some of the most amazing things that I know that he's always wanted to do here in Australia, but has never got the opportunity to do.
Should have been wearing a tuxedo.
So in Australia, Philip was a person with Duchenne muscular dystrophy that was not actually part of his normal social group in sense of the able-bodied. Was he finding himself a bit outside of that? But he was very much outstanding in the disability group of people. But now he realized that there is a normal, which is basically just living like everybody else, manifesting in another continent where they've worked this out for a while now. And they're integrating people on a whole different level. And so he's not finding it particularly attractive to come back to Australia to be a hero again, because right now he just wants to be normal.
Generally, when people think about people with disabilities, they quickly associate with someone who's not really able to do things for themselves, and aren't able to think for themselves, and a person with a disability is more or less they're just a person who just needs a bit more support to do those things, but nevertheless, they can do the same, if not more.
That gives you a good insight to the story that set this off. And I have, in my personal career, been an entrepreneurial person that's very good at building businesses. That's been proven over many years. So my ability to commercialize or make something happen in real commercial terms is my skill. The journey starts in Australia, where my son is involved in this process that you see, and his experience and his choices, of course, his. So he decides to go to Denmark, and I continue on with this integrated living community in Australia with a lot of other people. But at some point in time, my wife says, we don't know how all this is going to go. We're too far away. We need to go. And so we did. And then COVID came, and I became aware that the illusion of how fantastic this integration was in Denmark that my son was experiencing was a slight illusion, meaning there was really only one school that did this. And then somebody said to me that the model that you have developed in Australia is very suitable in Denmark. This is April last year. Since April last year, this has gone from a cardboard box idea, if you like, in Denmark to a expanding enterprise. And I really want to tell you the part of the enterprise that is actually taking shape, because the world, meaning Denmark or the Western world, or the places where resources are plentiful compared to other parts of the world, it is very much possible to integrate. And the abilities that comes from this integration is unbelievable, because it does not become more expensive. It becomes cheaper. So if you don't understand anything else about integrated living community, understand this. When people live, breathe, have life purposes, they are more healthy. They have more productive skills. They can contribute to society, and it's a win-win for everybody. Specifically about the integrated living community, is it possible to have some slides? Yes. That's fine.
Doesn't come online yet.
Oh, back online.
So social integration is fundamental, and it's a community challenge everywhere. And I would ask Anne-Marie to explain to us, in the capacity of being part of our board, what we're doing on the social integration side and what we're trying to achieve to take people with us. In other words, we're not doing this for them, for you, we're doing it with you. If you want to participate, that's all that's required. You don't have to have the deposit, you don't have to have the right skills, you have to have a dream or a wanting to contribute to this specific vision, and then you can participate. Can I ask you to talk a little bit about that?
Thank you. I'm a member of the board now of the integrated living community. Do I speak loud enough? Okay. And tell me if I speak too fast, then I will slow down. I'm the oldest person in the board of the Integrated Living Community Association, and Philip is the youngest. So we have more than 60 years between us. Philip is now 24 years old, and I'm 87. And the wonderful thing is that when we had, I want to start with saying this, because when we had our first board meeting, some of us were present at Højgaard-Olsen, which you saw here, and some of us were there online because they couldn't be there. And of course, when you use Zoom or Teams, sometimes everybody are just dropped off. But we were very clever, so we came back again. And we talked about what we could do to make it better. Then we were not, the program just didn't close after 40 minutes. So what happened? The youngest person, Philip, sent everybody a text next day. I have arranged it. So now next time we have a board meeting, we can stay online, all of us, for as many hours as we want to. And I was just so happy. So I had a big smile on my face saying, this is what we want to happen. And another thing is that some people around the world are trying to do things. Please stop trying. Do it. Because if somebody asks you to try to get up from this chair, I'll sit here and say, try. Shall I put this leg in front or this leg in front? But if they say, get up from the chair, I will maybe use my hands to get up. Or maybe I could do it without support, but I do it. And then for me, as being, I'm very honored to be asked, and you know, Peter, I think the first time I saw Philip, he was 2 years old. Yeah, here in Denmark. And for me, when I'm talking about this integration or inclusion, integration for me is that you come here and you get integrated. That means you are put in between what already exists, not participating yourself with the skills you have. So this is more of a masculine energy. Inclusion is, now I can only use one hand, or I'll stop talking. This is inclusion, and this is a more of a female energy. And we need both in order to making integrated living community be a reality. If we just go on like this, it will be completely different from going on like this, making inclusion possible. As Peter said, then everybody can contribute with whatever they can. So Philip was a most wonderful example that he contributed right away with what he could do for the next board meeting to work. I'll just add something because I am not an engineer. I am not a social worker. I'm not a doctor, but I have a background as a registered nurse and a movement relaxation therapist. And I work in the alternative complementary field with kinesiology. So I'm working with people of all ages, from maybe 2 weeks old, all the way up to, I think, my oldest client was 89, and with people who have some different kinds of handicaps, or people who are just as you and I being here, with all their many different problems. And it always has to do with working with the person. I cannot come up with solutions for any of my clients, but I can facilitate their skills so they come up with their solutions. And this is what I think that integrated living community is doing. And that's why I said, I'm happy to be a member of the board.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. So what I would like to do is give you an outline of where we are, because I think the action is the most important part of the equation. This is not a PowerPoint exercise. This is real life speaking. We have 6 components in our framework. First one being housing. There's no particular order in size, whatever, but Denmark holds a framework called almen bolig, which is about 15 to 20% of the stock. That means that Denmark knows and have a proven formula for how to build affordable housing. The criteria for almen housing in Denmark is that everybody has to be able to afford to live there. The problem, everybody. Everybody can afford can live in public housing of this form, okay? And it's not a cheap quality, but it's a cheap rental. So it's a rental property. The problem with almen bolig in Denmark is that they struggle with the inclusion part. They struggle with getting, when people have difficulties, they struggle with catering for it because there's such a demand that there's no problem in filling what they've got. So it's a bit like saying, well, we're always busy and we've always got, but so the model we bring is utilize their structure, but enhance it for sustainable building technology. So what's the best we know on the planet right now? And then how do we make sure it's accessible for everybody? So in other words, it's inclusion. So that's the building part. The next part is the social integration. It's not in any order, but the next part is how do we make sure that everybody can participate? So we form this foundation. Foundation has a board. The board consists of people that hold skills that we require. So we have the principals from Højgaard-Olsen. We have the principals from a farm. So there is another beautiful story in the equation of a farm on Zealand, in Sjælland, that basically caters for people with mental disabilities. And they have about 75 students, and they have discovered, which is sort of like for them obvious after 35 years, they're strictly clear on that when you come there, the focus is not on you, because it tends to be that when you have people with functional limits, you try and help to improve their limits. When you come to this farm, it's about us running the farm. It's called Østergaard. Østergaard. So Østergaard is basically changing the paradigm for the people that arrive, and you see the people, the social workers that are there, they'll say to you, I used to work in this other place, and I was finding it really difficult to motivate the students to come and do stuff or get out in the morning. And now I come here and they line up before I'm ready because they need to go and work and so forth. They don't, you know, the whole paradigm has shifted. And it's a production farm, and it's making money, and it's selling products. So it's not a exercise thing, it's a real working farm. So that farm and the Egmont Højskolen are our social integration experts. One has 35 years experience, the other one has 60 years experience. They know something about social integration that we are missing. So we're forming a partnership with a university because we have to do it scientifically. And we're creating an outcome that allows us to say, okay, you pay your rent, you shovel your snow. What else is it that you have to do to function in a community? Because on purpose doesn't have to mean that you know I want to live in a social community before I arrive. On purpose means that you can be integrated into this with the skills you bring because you want to be here, but you have no prior skills. I'm not sure I want to share the kitchen, or I'm not sure I want to do whatever it is. So that's part of the equation. Now, third is the most important part, because once I've gone through the whole thing, you will realize, of course, that somebody's going to pay for this. It's going to cost money. And the more illusionary the vision is, the more expensive it's going to be. So it is super important that we base this around an enterprise that can make profit. So we are building an enterprise for profit where the people that are living in this community can work. And it is not an enterprise for making profits so we can buy more groceries, or we can buy a new lawnmower or something. No, it's an enterprise of scale that can be participating in the normal economy where a pension fund, a Danish pension fund, can invest. And now we're talking hundreds of millions. So we're talking about an enterprise of scale, and we have the Danish pension fund ready to go. And what they're doing for us, they're saying, we will help you shape the framework of how the enterprise must look for us to invest. So in the business model, we include everybody. Everybody can contribute. We can see that on the farm. We can see that at Egmont. Everybody can participate in the workings of this environment. I'm not allowed to say, but it's one of the largest. It's one of the 4 largest pension funds at this point. Probably 5 largest. Then I've expanded the field a bit. We have 4th pillar, which is energy. And in Denmark, energy is well connected. So you could say you could just connect to the grid like everybody else. But because we look at this as an enterprise model that could be copied anywhere, anybody can come and learn and live and see and copy it and take it away. So it's important that we provide our local energy. There is a consortium in Skive called Green Lab, which is basically a cooperative. Cooperative is a community type funded model that's put together maybe for the last 5 years and is now providing energy for all the local businesses and the local people living in the community. And that model is what we will adapt. We don't have to know everything. So they have a model for how we provide our local energy in this system. Fifth thing is transportation. We need to get from A to B. And so we organize from an Australian model through a social enterprise called the Social Capital Fund, den Sociale Kapital Fund, and a Danish car hiring company, disability cars together with normal cars, all electric, in a fleet that allows people to go where they need to go in a model where you have car sharing. So anybody that comes and lives in the integrated living community will have to carpool. They cannot bring their own car. You can only live there if you use the car fleet. The model is such set up that you book online and everything is automated to the extent that if you need to go to work, there will always be a car for you. If you get to book, 90% of the time there will be a car, and maybe only 80% of the time will be the car you like. But such is life. But generally, transportation will be catered for. It'll be cost effective, it'll be energy optimized. And here is another critical point. Because we have production, because we have energy, and because we have a car fleet, we have a new production environment that means we can store energy in our cars because they're not running them down. So software management, you can actually utilize the energy resources you had, your battery capacity. So when it's not sunny or when it's not windy, whatever, we can store our power. So we are building a model around the production, the energy production, and the electric car fleet to basically allow for the optimal environment. And I may not have said this. If you can move one more slide down. The production is aquaponics. And for those of you who don't know it, most people in Denmark don't know what aquaponics is. It is something that was invented by the Mayas or Aztecs, Indians, several thousand years ago. It's something that has seen commercial value in the last 50 years, and it's prevalent around the planet at large scale. It's certainly a commercial viable product. It is proven to make money, and the improvement we make on the product is twofold. The first is that we optimize the way the structure of the components are to get the maximum in return on investment. And the second component is that the energy resource is fish. And so most people will use a fish style that is very hardcore, very, very robust, very easy to maintain. We're going to go for the difficult solution where we produce a fish that people will have for dinner. So we have two income sources. We have our aquaponic greeneries or production, and then we have our fish production. And currently we're building such a system at the farm at Østergaard. We have a demonstration test product that's currently being used for scientific purpose at DTU, Denmark's Technical University, and we're on the way with automating the processes in order to scale it. Next year, we will start building a new system at scale at Højgaard-Olsen, which currently caters for 500 people 3 times a day in their kitchen. And of course, they would like to be self-sufficient in greeneries. So that's a large system. Finally, the 6th component is a training and educational center. That means that if you live in the ILC, you can invite your friends over because there's accommodation where they can come and stay. They can come for a holiday, whatever. But the purpose of the training and facilitation centers, you can come from anywhere in the world and stay as long as it takes for you to learn how to see what we're doing. So we want to make it possible and easy accessible to copy this. We have a package now of a product that we can export, like we can export windmills, we can export the integrated living platform, and it's free for everybody to share. Of course, you're going to have to pay what it costs for us to participate in helping you, but the idea is that here's a new way of living that can be applied in Denmark, or it can be applied in Australia, it can be applied around the world. That's the intention. I can mention a few other people that's showing up in this short time frame. We have people backing us on the business model. We have lawyers going in for the structure. We have accountants at the top end of the scale that want to do, and these people are doing it pro bono because they see what we're doing is worthwhile. So we're getting top level advice. We have a famous Danish company, which I am allowed to mention, that's called Højgaard-Olsen. They make insulation, but it turns out they're probably the leaders in insulation. They make it out of stone, but it turns out that their Højgaard is absolutely fantastic for creating biofilters for the fish. So we're into a new invention about how we can scale and how we can produce the optimal setup for our aquaponic system. And they're the sponsors there. They're helping us there. They're also interested. There's a bit more, I guess, to the side because it's not formalized yet, but there's also an interest in the actual construction of the optimal home for building green, if you like. I think I'm running out of time because I think we need some time for question. I would just close by saying that we have some very enthusiastic board members, and we have people that understands funding. We have people from the schools that I mentioned. We have people from the social fabric of the social housing in Denmark. So we have made sure that our board consists of the different skill sets that's required in order to make this happen. So we're well underway, and of course, nothing is going to stop us because this is what is required at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Peter. I've just one quick question. Have you set up an intentional living community yet?
We have a small version of an intentional living community in Australia, but we don't have one. We don't have anything in Denmark yet. So the intentional living communities are occurring at the farm. So we are starting to build housing in that context. So we're using them, but there is 2 parcels of land that I'm not allowed to speak up officially, but we know where the location will be. We know how to get underway with it. But the stumbling block right now is that the commercial enterprise must be proven to work because it's a critical part of the thing. We know how to build the houses, but we need to get the commercial enterprise going first. That's really, really critical.
So when you set up such a community, what would be the percentage of people with a disability or special needs living in the community?
Very good question. And so I would start by saying that this doesn't have to be a disability facility at all. The point being that it could be for any profile of, so if you have a community interest in building something, you can take our model and use it in another framework. But in our case, we're going to start with people with disabilities. And in that case, it's the Egmont model, where it's about 20 to 30% of the students at Egmont that has a disability, and that works beautifully for integration purposes. There's also a number of participants. You can't have 1,000 because you don't know each other. You can't have 100 because you don't get the synergy. So the number is about 300 to 350. So that's the number we will start with in our first community. So that will be the number of people live there. But the profile of the people live there will be a community reflection. So depending on where we built, it'll have to be reflecting so local people want to live there. It's not a spaceship that lands and then lots of people come from different places and lives here. It's a community integration exercise where the people that land are the people from different communities in Denmark that has a disability and has no place to go. But the rest will be found as local as possible. So it becomes a community environment. It doesn't become sort of a, an Australian idea with a new thing and 350 people suddenly live next door in this farm area.
Thank you. Any questions from the room?
Thank you very much. Have you a website? And also with the whole concept described? Fine. I mean, working on housing, we realize we have some problem also in Denmark with this model of almene housing, because you need money for such a project, and we have also huge problems with building them in Denmark still. So that's maybe the problem number one I can see. But else about energy and the connection between energy and transportation is obviously that you can do something there. And the model about the food production is also a model that will be it in advance in the future, I think. But the whole connection between these 6 initiatives is not that easy, because in totally it's a concept, it's a model, and therefore I think also that it would be the first step to see it in practice. So I wish you good luck with that model to practice it, because still it's on paper, although with many skills and useful people and so, but the first stone you have to work on is, let us see it, because that would be really the trial number one. So I wish you really good luck.
Want to say that, of course, you're absolutely right that there are many challenges, unsurmountable challenges, depending on how you view it. But I can say to you, on the almen side, on the building side, the footprint per square meters that is allowable within that framework is not going to be sufficient, and we know that. But there are funds in Denmark that are interested in. So one of the challenges that the Danish building industry has is that even though we talk a lot about building green and building new, in the last 10 years, only about 4% of actually created enterprise built is got some sort of sustainability element into it. So it's only 4% of the building. So from the architect having great ideas to the end product, there's a massive gap. So our endeavor is to utilize the latest technology, and I could spend a long time explaining that to you, but there are techniques available right now on how we make houses that can make it cheaper and more efficient. But we are still clear that for the first one, we will be more expensive. But there are funds, and I'm sure you're aware of them in Denmark, that will invest in experimenting with something that's new and innovative in that thing, and that's where we're going. But you're right, the almen model doesn't cater for what we want to do.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I have a very short comment from those participating outside. A big thank you from Sylvia, who's joining us from France. Big thank you for you, Peter, for doing it.
And there's no questions from the online participants? No. Okay. So a quick question, because we are running late, yeah? Let's see. Can you manage? Yes, fine.
No, this is, I came in skeptical. I thought it was something bigger and vaguer, but I see now, you have some essential ingredients. So I would like to see your business plan to understand the economic engine. I mean, as long as the social inclusion, that's beautiful, but I'm really interested in, are the residents, the labor force for this technology that is the export base of this new community? How many hours a week are residents expected or needed to run this aquaponics business? Yeah, that's one question. And then the other is, what's the rate of return that your pension fund requires? Sounds like a better deal than most investment companies. So, and many more. I'll just ask more about it.
Okay, so the first question is about the ability to utilize the residents in the workforce, and
is that what most intentions use, that share and own? You pretty much have to put in your work and that labor. So that's
Yep. Okay. So the labor force model is complicated, but I can say to you that it is a living model at this farm in Denmark. So they're doing it right now. And the biggest challenge we have is not the allocation of hours and how much you work, because that is functioning. The biggest challenge we have is that the legal framework for the organization, which is what the lawyers will be working on, so forth, has to be able to cater for. In Denmark, you have something about that it's unfair trade if you have low cost labor doing stuff for you or something like that. So that part is the challenge. The rest is, there won't be just people with disabilities. There will be people, all sorts of things. At the farm, there will be people that walk around after me when I'm doing something on that, that don't actually really do anything, but they feel they participate. And there's room for them as well. But does the model work? Yes, it works. The challenge will be that we need to be allowed in a legal framework to utilize these resources and let them be included without being blamed for using unfair competitive advantage. The good news is that nobody's doing aquaponics at scale in Denmark. So it's not like we're killing another market.
So you're still working out the labor participation, but everyone who wishes to can participate. But the optimization of the technology seems to me this is very different from a spread out farm. This is technology dependent food production. What are, just for sustainability reasons, the costs of the startup for that technology is potentially dependent. What materials and inputs are needed to maintain the technology, and how much of those inputs will be produced on site? Or do you have a breakdown of the business costs to create this infrastructure and then to keep it going? Yeah. Or do you expect that to be a revenue generating return on capitalization as well as the business production producing money? But can you pay for the cost of the technology? Yeah, thanks.
So the answer is obviously complicated, but let me say to you that the Danish community is probably one of the most efficient in agriculture farming, because of course labor is expensive here. So we have probably the highest tech industry in the world in terms of how you farm the land. Now, this technology is incredibly low tech, meaning that what you're doing is very, very, very simple. This, what you see, is because I want to demonstrate that it doesn't have to be in the country, because a lot of people say this is really great, but I want to live in the city. And I'm just sort of showing you this as a playhouse to say that it could be smack in the middle of the city, but of course that becomes more expensive. But where we start is in the countryside. A lot of Danish farms are not viable anymore. There's no transition plan because people can't buy them. So if you say that 300 people is going to move into this community, 2/3 of the land becomes forest, which we need in Denmark, and we start a productive aquaponic system. And yes, there are technology, but the technology will be mostly focused on making sure that the system doesn't derail because the skill sets aren't there. But the funny thing is that this is not a farmer job. So in other words, we're not convincing the farmer community to take this on, because you don't really need any farming skills to do this. And I can tell you that on the way here, I took Anne-Marie to a test site at Roskilde University, and that's been sitting there for 6 years, and it grows like crazy and nobody does anything. Yes, sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yes, so I would like to thank Peter and Anna-Marie, and we really wish you all the best with this project. It's very inspiring, so thank you very much. And it's lunchtime now, yeah?
So you probably have to put down only 2 examples of